Hearst Castle Night Tour started in the 90s and has been a giant success ever since. And there's a reason why the night tours sell out fast, and that's because the night tours don't fall in line with the typical tour of a historical monument. Instead, it's a chance for guests to travel back in time during Hearst Castle's heyday, when it wasn't an accredited museum, but a ranch, where the rich and the beautiful had lavish parties with not a care in the world. And that's what the guests coming up here for the night tour want to be a part of. They want to know, what was it like to be part of Mr. Hearst's elite guest list? They want to imagine themselves walking in the footsteps of Hedda Hopper, Clark Gable, or even Marion Davies. As guides, our job is to enhance that experience for the guests. And what better way to travel back in time than with music? And letting people know, what kind of music were they listening to? What were the popular dances? What musical guests were here at the castle? And what kind of music and popular dances were they listening and dancing to? We hope this unit will give you some insight of the music of the 1930s in such a way that you'll be able to incorporate it into your tour so that your guests will have fun and you will have fun too.
Music can encapsulate a certain decade. It reflects and even shapes what is happening during that time period, such as dance, fashion, popular Hollywood, politics, social culture, and values. The 30s were especially memorable because of the Great Depression, which, spoiler alert, wasn't that great. This economic downturn changed how people lived and also changed the course of music. Musical styles and lyrics represented the reality of the times, as in some folk music styles. During the Depression, many people were displaced, forced to move from their homes in search of jobs or to find better living conditions. People moved from their rural areas to urban centers, where sometimes they were working in factories. The economy forced them to leave what was comfortable. They left their culture and their roots. And music became a way for them to remember home and bring them back to better times. It was a reminder of who they were and where they came from. Music, therefore, was popular, not only because of the emotional ties most people have to music, but also because it was an inexpensive means of entertainment. This entertainment was through radio, record players, jukeboxes, and live entertainment. Live music, places to dance. These were dance pavilions, like the Avalon Casino Ballroom in Catalina, and dance clubs like the Coconut Grove at the Los Angeles Ambassador Hotel. Other public places where dances were held were roadhouses, churches, and places like the Elks Clubs. Things at Castle were a little different, at least for the better half of the 1930s, before Hearst himself was affected by the Great Depression. Even though times were tough in the United States during the 1930s, the era provided new innovations in folk music, jazz, popular songs, musicals, and country and western.
Oh, but your love.
Musicals first got their start on stage with anything from operas to Broadway and vaudeville, and music first appeared in the movies in 1927. The end of the 20s would bring the first real musical with all talking dialogue. This was the 1929 MGM production called Broadway Melody. which won Best Picture at the Academy Awards and featured San Simeon guest Anita Page.
They flicker there, a million hearts beat quicker there. No skies are gray on the great white way. That's the Broadway melody.
The MGM Cosmopolitan musical, Hollywood Review, would be released 2 months before the stock market crash. The highly popular musical with Marion Davies also featured several San Simeon guests, such as Irving Thalberg, nicknamed the Boy Wonder because of his notability of making people famous, such as Hollywood Review stars John Gilbert, Norma Shearer, and Joan Crawford. Other San Simeon guests in this film include Cliff Edwards, Ukulele Ike, Anita Page, Billy Haynes, and Marie Dressler. Musical films were an important part of popular music during the 1930s, offering an escape from reality, the Great Depression. The lavish and successful Broadway musicals of the 20s wasn't as popular as in the 30s, when the economy collapsed. Audiences expected music in their film. Though the 20s had silent films, there was usually a performing piano and an instrumental section as a backdrop to stimulate mood and emotion from the scene and the audiences. So the transition from Broadway shows to musical was a natural evolution. These films opened a door to the glamorous world of Hollywood, showcasing song and dance numbers in front of a stylish background. There was a major boom in production of musicals as the technology of adding synchronized sound improved dramatically following the release of the first talking picture, The Jazz Singer, in 1927.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing. You want to hear Tootsie? All right, hold on. No, listen.
Some of the most popular 30s musical movies, such as 1935's Top Hat, included stars Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, who were never guests at the castle. However, Top Hat does include music and lyrics by San Simeon guest Irving Berlin, like the song Cheek to Cheek. According to a PBS article, the music of Berlin offered hope and inspiration to a nation in bleak times and rejoiced in the good things embodied in the American way of life. The beginning
when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and the cares that hung around me through the week seem to vanish like a gambler's lucky streak when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek.
The beginning of the 1930s featured San Simeon guest Clark Gable singing Puttin' on the Ritz by Irving Berlin.
Take it away.
These will be amusing, Gertrude.
I hope so.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where Harlem sits? Putting on the Ritz. Tangos, gowns upon the bevy of high browns from down the levee, all misfits. Putting on the Ritz. That's where each and every Lulu Belle goes. Every Thursday evening in her swell clothes. Rubbing elbows, come with me. We'll attend a Jubilee and see them spend their last 2 bits. Putting on the Ritz.
Song Puttin' on the Ritz is a slang expression meaning to dress very fashionably. The lyrics speak of going down to the well-to-do Park Avenue in New York City and dressing like the rich. Putting on the
blue and you don't know where to go to.
Why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz. Different types who wear a day coat, pants with stripes and cutaway coat, perfect fits. Putting on the Ritz.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Different types who wear a day coat, pants with stripes or cutaway coat, perfect fits.
Puttin' on the Ritz was covered by many musicians in the 1930s, such as the Benny Goodman Orchestra. In 1937, Goodman and his orchestra would introduce to the world the catchy song Sing, Sing, Sing in the musical Hollywood Hotel, with San-Simeon guest and Hearst Castle columnist Luella Parsons and Dick Powell.
Big bands was literally just that. Big. A gigantic band of 15 to 20 players playing arranged compositions with an easy flowing style and a driving beat. Legendary band leaders of this era include Count Basie, Tommy Dorsey, Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Woody Herman, Harry James, Glenn Miller, and Artie Shaw. Most bands featured singers, and many vocal recording artists of the period got their start with a big band. Swing music, however, existed in a variety of earlier forms before its mid-30s plunge into mainstream. In the beginning of the 1930s, Duke Ellington and his orchestra composed and played "It Don't Mean a Thing If You Ain't Got That Swing." Swing!
It don't mean a thing, all you gotta do is swing. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm every little thing you've got. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
Music, with its roots in Harlem and evolving from jazz and blues, is characterized by its rhythmic expression or its feel. Swing music is an evolution of jazz, which originated in New Orleans around the turn of the 20th century and started to gain mainstream popularity after World War I. The Jazz Age is a post-World War I movement lasting till the beginning of the Great Depression. The Jazz Age was a free-spirited time where people expressed a newfound freedom in music and dance. The combo jazz band also became popular in the 1930s. A combo is typically made up of a piano, bass, and drums, the rhythm section, with 2 to 4 melody players on instruments such as the clarinet, trumpet, saxophone, vibraphone, or guitar. Goodman led a very influential combo band that was racially mixed, an unusual idea in segregated America at a time when most bands were either African American or European American. Types of dances in the swing genre. The versatile foxtrot, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. A popular dance of the 1920s, and one whose appeal would continue into the 1930s, was known for its smooth and graceful walking steps. Its popularity was in its simplicity and variety. Here we have Gus Arnheim. Remember him? San Simeon Gus, popular band leader, connections with the Coconut Grove nightclub down in Los Angeles. Here he is playing a foxtrot called So Rare. Anyone could do it to different tempos of jazz, whether it was spinning and shaking to hot jazz that is fast or gliding, and swaying to sweet, slow, and mellow jazz. One San Simeon guest named Irene Foote popularized this dance that dominated pop culture through the 20s and the 30s. A style of couples dance called swing dancing went with big band jazz. One such dance, called the jitterbug, features partners throwing each other over the head and through the lip.
This thing might turn into something. I'm mistaken. Here comes something now.
Jazz, swing, and big band sounds were not the only music to define the 1930s. One of William Randolph Hearst's favorite musical styles was country western music, especially that of Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneers, who visited several times throughout the 30s. Roy Rogers recalls that Mr. Hearst would ask for Tumbling Tumbleweeds over and over again.
See them tumbling down, pledging their love to the ground. Lonely but free I'll be found, drifting along with a tumbling tumbleweed. I'm a roving cowboy, riding all day long. Tumbleweeds surround me, sing their lonely song. Nights underneath a prairie moon, I ride alone and sing a tune. See them tumbling.
This song was made famous when Gene Autry sang it in 1935 cowboy movie of the same name. Although the song is said to be sung at San Simeon by Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneers, Gene Autry was never a guest at San Simeon. Country Western has its roots in traditional folk music of the Appalachian region of the U.S. and African American blues music around the turn of the 20th century. It also included bluegrass, folk, and gospel. The first recordings were made in the 1920s in a style that was then called hillbilly music. By the 1930s, the media, radio, and recordings had begun to popularize this new style called country and western, named after its Nashville, Tennessee eastern roots and its southwestern Texas roots. Jimmie Rodgers, later nicknamed the father of country music, was a successful and influential musician of the style. Rodgers would popularize yet another one of Hearst's favorites, yodeling.
T for Texas, T for Tennessee. T for Texas, T for Tennessee. T for Thelma, that gal that made a wreck out of me. If you don't want me, woman, you sure don't have to stall, Lord, Lord. If you don't want me, mama, you sure don't have to stall. 'Cause I can get more women than a passenger train can haul. Oh, I'm gonna buy me a pistol just as long as I'm tall. I'm gonna buy me a pistol just as long as I'm tall. I'm gonna shoot poor Thelma just to see her jump and fall.
Lagging record sales and concert attendance due to the Great Depression would affect Rodgers before his death in 1933. It was the Great Depression that would influence many country, western, and folk song musicians such as Leadbelly, the Carter Family, and Woody Guthrie. In 1936, the Carter Family sang No Depression in Heaven.
For fear the hearts of men are failing, for these are latter days we know. The Great Depression now is spreading, God's words declared it would be so. I'm going where there's no depression, to the lovely land that's free from care. I'll leave this world of toil and trouble. My home's in heaven, I'm going there.
Country music often had song lyrics echoing the sentiment of the times. Woody Guthrie gave political commentary of the state of employment and economic inequality through songs.
I got them Dust Bowl blues. I just blowed in and I'll blow back out again. I guess you've heard about every kind of blues. I ain't got no home, I'm just a roaming round. Just a wandering worker, I go from town to town. and the police make it hard wherever I may go, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. My brothers and my sisters are stranded on this road, a hot and dusty road that 1,000,000 feet have trod. Rich man took my home and drove me from my door, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore.
Now, how does this all tie into Hearst Castle and the guests and Hearst himself? Were the guests dancing cheek to cheek? Was Hoagie Carmichael or Irving Berlin ever playing on the piano in the assembly room? Did Clark Gable show off to the other guests by singing "Puttin' on the Ritz"? One can only imagine.
Hearst's views on music wasn't always favorable. In one article, he wrote that music and dancing softened the hearts of men and made them easier to govern. Did it ever occur to you, gentle reader, that in this fine, free country of ours, we have listened too much to the merry music of jazz bands and have become a little too easy to govern? In fact, we can probably assume that what he's listening to is probably not what's trending in the 30s. In the 30s, Hearst was already in his 70s, and like most people, he is fond of music that reminds him of his past, the gay 90s, as he puts it, when he was in his 20s and 30s.
What we do know is William Randolph Hearst did like country and western music. We do know that on his 67th birthday, April 29th, 1930, Steve Ziegar brought Gus Arnheim and 3 to 4 members of his band up to the castle to play for his birthday. Billy Haynes mentions Hearst dancing the Charleston. He used to love to do his favorite dance. He was a towering 6-footer, a mountainous man, and he did the Charleston like a performing elephant. He had as little grace as an elephant, but the dignity of one. Is that a burn? We also know that Hearst took dance lessons early on. Irene Foote taught Hearst and his wife. She said, "The only person I ever enjoyed teaching was William Randolph Hearst. Pretty regularly, we were invited up to his house on Riverside Drive to have dinner before the lesson started. After dinner was over, the butler rolled up the rugs in the drawing room and turned on the gramophone. Vernon danced with Millicent, while I danced with W.R. He had a very keen mind, and if I showed him a step once, he remembered it. He also had that spring in his knees that is vital to a good dancer, and we thoroughly enjoyed the evenings we spent at his house." And lastly, according to Patricia Lake, she quotes, "We had a record player I used to play in the assembly room. I would play April in Paris and all the great old tunes. I used to turn it on and play records."
Mr. Hearst and the musical guests that we mentioned on this video were a major part of the musical landscape of the 1930s, including the story of music of that time period, Hearst musical tastes, and stories of his musical guests will help your night tour come to life.
That you met again by chance, you never really guessed you'd part at the height of your romance. But something in the air tells me that she don't care.
Cynthia, why aren't you on skates?
I can have a better time singing.
Oh, come on up here and sing. We'll all have a good time.
All right, but make it good and hot.
Tony's wife, the boys in Havana love Tony's wife. Around the cabana of Tony's wife, they sing in a manner that's rare. Tony's wife, the fellas are fools about Tony's wife. They're fighting their dudes about Tony's wife. But Tony, he's too lazy to care. When she plays on her guitar, tra-la-la-la, how they come from near and far. Oh me, she gives them a shaking up, you should see. The homes that are breaking up, gosh, oh gee. A man would surrender his life for Tony's wife.
Old man Boone, wake up now, 'cause I've fallen in love. Go spread the news to all the stars above. Shine for my baby while we're dancing tonight, and fill her tender eyes with love and dynamite.
Yeah, look at the time, look at the time, yeah.
In a bottle of wine, just do your darndest to make sure that she'll be mine.
Please, Mr. Kirk, thank your husband, thank your husband,
Till noon, my sincerest thanks to you. Oh, man.
Look, Mr. Kirk, you are my best customer, and I appreciate it. Maybe you got in a home, maybe you don't need to stop sleep, but me, I have a home, I ain't stand to have to stop sleep.
All right, Tony, just one more chorus.
You're telling me the same story for the last hour. I get sick and tired of hearing the song over and over again. Oh, but you ain't gonna...
Yeah, old man Moon put started us in a bottle of wine. Just do your darndest to make sure that she'll be
good night.
mine.
Maybe.
Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't be so serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save, and you worry so, but you can't take that good dough when you go. Keep on repeating it's the berries, and the strongest oak must fall. The sweet things in life to you were just loan, so how you gonna lose what you've never owned? Life is just a bowl of cherries, so live and laugh at it all.
Life is just a bowl of cherries, don't make it serious, life's too mysterious. You work, you save, you worry so, but you
Have you seen the well-to-do up on Lennox Avenue, on that famous thoroughfare with their noses in the air? High hats and colored collars, white hats and $15, spending every dime for a wonderful time. If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where Harlem sits, putting on the Ritz? Spangled gowns upon a bevy of high browns from down the levee, all misfits, putting on the Ritz. That's where each and every Lulu Belle goes. Every Thursday evening with her swell bow. Round the elbow, come with me, and we'll attend their jubilee and see them spend their last 2 bits, putting on the Ritz.
They used to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow or guns to bear, I was always there, right on the job. They used to tell me I was building a dream, with peace and glory ahead. Why should I be standing in line, just waiting for bread? Once I built a railroad, I made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime?